All right, so that was variable 6. We are now on functions 1. Cannot find function call me in this scope. Okay, let's find out what the bug is here. Func1. Add some function with the name call me without arguments or return value. All right, so it's just saying how do you define a function? And we can see how to define a function here. It's just fn, call me, and it doesn't have arguments. So this is empty here. Those two things are empty, and then there's no function body, and there's no return statement. So that's all they're asking for. So that's a pretty straightforward fix. Let's write that out. Good, it worked. And now we have another thing here, functions 2. The to-do is add the missing type of the argument num after the colon. Well, it could be any integer type because we're going in a range. So because it's in a range here, it can't be like a float or a string or something like that. And because we're adding one to it, it has to be an addable number. And since it's going from 0 to something, it's going to be a positive number. So that means either a U32 or an I64. Any one of the integer types would work. And the fact that call me has 3 means even an I8 would work here. Right. Something as small as an I8. So let's try I8 and see what happens. There you go. And that worked. Next is functions 3. And this is saying fix the function call. So what this one is trying to teach you is how to pass values. See, they used U32. So I can put in a 7 here, or an 8. I meant to type 7, but my finger hit 8. That's right. And that should do, there you go. And it looped over 1 to 8. That's all we needed to do. So it's just teaching us how to pass in values to a function. What's next? Functions 4. Expected type found curly brace. Oh, yes. So this is saying how do you return a value? And this is the syntax here for Rust, right? This one, for example, is returning a Boolean. And here we need to return, since we're passing in an I64, we might as well return an I64. And let's see what that does. There we go. Your sale price is 48. Very good. So next, mismatch types. Expected I32 found unit. So that's the bug there. Functions 5. Oh, so what they're teaching us here is you can either use the return statement, and I think Clippy is going to complain. So let's see in a second. I'm going to hit save. It should work, but Clippy will say, hey, you could do this a better way. All right, so let's write that out. There we go. So it's done. We successfully solved it. But there is an unneeded return statement because the way Rust works is the last expression, if there is one, in a block is what the block returns. So we can get rid of the semicolon and the return statement and just have num times num. All right, that was a good one. Now we're in if one. Bigger. So we're looking for, we've got a mismatch type. Okay, so the first thing we have is the problem is that it's returning the value here, but there's no return statement. And there's no final expression. It says you can optionally experiment here. Okay, so this is interesting because now this has tests. And whenever there are tests, the first thing I like to do is get it to compile first and then fix the tests. So I'm going to do that by just putting a 0 in here. Because right now it doesn't compile. It's going to give me warnings that A and B aren't used. And some of these tests might fail. But that's okay. At least we get it to compile. If we can get it to compile and we get the test failure, we know which tests need to be fixed. Okay, so to fix this, I think we can just write the code. It says do not use another function call or additional variables. And if both numbers are equal, any of them can be returned. It should be either, but I'm not going to complain. So it says not to use another function call, which would be the easy way to do this, but we can just use it since we're on if statements, right? That's the point of this exercise is ifs. So we'll just say if A is greater than B, then return A, else return B. And this is, again, using the feature of Rust that says the last value of the last block gets returned. I could put an explicit return A and B here, but I think Clippy will complain. Yeah. So all the tests pass, but Clippy is saying you don't need to put the return statement there. So let's take those out, and then we have a nice clean test. Do not use another function call. Yeah, I think that the saying is don't say A max B, right? Because you could do that. That solves the problem, but it doesn't use if statements, right? And the point of this exercise is to use if statements. Scoop says, that just hurts my soul. No, I know, but how do you think max is implemented? A max B. It's probably with an if statement, right? Can I jump to it? Max by. Oh no, it's done this way. Instead of using the if statement, they use a match. So we could do the same. We could have done exactly this code, but I think that's beyond what they were looking for. All right, so that's this one done. Let's go to the next one. If two. Mismatch types. Okay, let's see what mismatch types is all about. Fix the compiler error on this function. So it's expecting a string. And again, I like to fix the compilation errors before I look at the tests. So let's just return a 1 as a string and see what happens. So now we have two failures. So this is saying foo for fizz. This means that calling foo if fizz with the argument fizz should return foo. Okay. And I believe it does. And that's why one test passes here. Bar for fizz. Foo if fizz fuzz is bar. Okay, so we can just compare fizzish is equal to bar. Then we're going to return, oh no, if it's fuzz, it's going to return bar. And then down here, foo if fizz, literally anything is baz. So it means anything else is baz. Now, Clippy might complain about this, but let's find out. No, it liked it. It liked it. The reason I was thinking Clippy might complain is that whenever we get like if, else chains, Clippy suggests using a match instead. And we can try it with a match. But this point of this exercise is if. But let's try it with a match. Fizz returns foo, fuzz returns bar, and literally anything else returns baz. Let's comment that out. Rerun and see if that. Oops, I hit the Control D again. Yeah, and so this still passes. Who did that? Master Queef. Really? Thank you for the follow. But this is an if exercise, so we're going to leave it as an if, and Clippy's not complaining. So I'm not going to worry about it. It does say function foo if fizz is never used. That's because in our main we're not using it. But we can just do that to make that warning go away. Foo if fizz. Fizz fez. Sure. Let's do that. And now that warning goes away. Okay, good. What's next? Next is if 3. So if and else have incompatible types. We fixed something similar to that in the previous one where it was returning a string and an integer. Here we have fix the compiler error in the statement below. This should be returning a string. And here's a return statement. Don't change the expression below. Okay, so it's saying if identifiers 1, 2, or 3, we have beach, burrow, desert, and unknown. And I think the only error is that we're looking for values 1, 2, and 3. So we can this is a I32 and this is an F64. So we got to change that from F64 to an I32. And then this obviously is a string type. So we can either make it a 4 or a 0. Let's just make it a 4. Just as long as it's not 1, 2, or 3, it'll come down to the unknown path. And I believe that'll fix the compilation error. And it fixes the tests as well. So that's how we did that. This can be any value besides 1, 2, or 3. Because it's just going to follow the else path. And again, it's interesting that Clippy is not complaining about this not being a match statement, because this should be a match statement. But that's fine. Next. Quiz 1. We're up to the first quiz. This is a quiz for the following sections: variables, functions, and if. Mary is buying apples. The price of the apple is calculated as follows. Apple costs 2 rustbucks. If Mary buys more than 40 apples, each apple only costs 1 rustbuck. Write a function that calculates the price of an order of apples given the quantity bought. Put your function here. Okay. Calculate price of apples. And we're going to take the number of apples, it looks like. So apples. And I guess it doesn't matter what type it is. Let's do use 32. It's going to return the price. And it looks like it's also looking for an integer here. So we can make that U32. And I'm just going to put 0 here just to get the thing to compile. And it just has one test. So it only cares about one thing. And so we just need to calculate the price appropriately. An apple costs 2 rustbucks, but if it's more than 40, they only cost 1. So we can say if apples is more than 40, then the cost is the same as the number of apples. Otherwise, it's apples times 2. That's pretty straightforward, I think. All right. So we were able to create a function, and we calculated using if statements. We didn't really use variables other than the fact that we're getting an argument as a variable here. But that's fine. We didn't declare any new ones, is what I mean. All right. Maybe we can work on later on a more intense quiz that requires external variables beside the argument being passed in. All right. That was quiz 1. What's next?